You know a spot, but not just a spot, the spot. Actually, with the all-new Nissan Frontier, you know a bunch of them. One for hitting a trail. One for catching a wave. One where this happened.
Yo, where'd our tent go?
Another where the fish get bigger every time you tell the story. Some spots, you made your mark. Others marked you. And one? Oh, okay, let's stay away from that one. But the key to these great spots? Being able to reach them in the first place. Your spot is out there. Find your frontier in the all-new 2022 Nissan Frontier. With best-in-class standard 310 horsepower, advanced tech, and 281 pound-foot of torque. Comparison based on 2022 Frontier S versus latest in-market Ward small truck segment. Base models compared based on manufacturer's website.
Spring it on with 40 to 70% off almost everything at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com. Matching styles for the family are on sale too. Shop it all through April 12th.
This is Donald Parham of the LA Chargers, and you're listening to Chargers Unleashed, part of the LA Football Network. Stay jiggy.
Welcome to another episode of Chargers Unleashed. Jake Hefner and Dan Wolkenstein here with you for the LA Football Network. Today's show, of course, is being brought to you by Charger Bolt Family Brewery X, UFC Fit Temecula. If you are joining us on the show, 118 days to be more specific, since we closed the book on the 2020 NFL season, and we are just a mere 4 days away from Chargers football returning and the kickoff, the true kickoff of the 2021 NFL season.
Hopefully the kickoff is a touchback for the Chargers. But, Jake, we got a football game to talk about today because the Chargers 2021 season officially begins this Sunday, 10 a.m. Pacific, at Washington Football Team. Your host, Jake Hefner, myself, Dan Wolkenstein. We're so excited to be here. We are talking all things Chargers Week 1 and the 2021 NFL season. Jake, where do we even start? We got a live show. We're going to have folks coming in here doing all kinds of guests. We'll have all kinds of special things happening. Before we even get started, Jake, how are you feeling just knowing that in 4 days' time, we are going to know the Chargers' record after 1 week?
Slightly terrified?
Right.
Okay, slightly nervous, as it has been the trend with this team going all the way back to the Norv Turner days. This team has been historic on their reputation in the month of September and the first quarter of the season, starting slow. And especially in an AFC West division with the Kansas City Chiefs is not something that you can afford to do. So Brandon Staley going a cross-country early game for his first NFL coaching debut has a very tall task ahead of him.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to get into all kinds of stuff for the 2021 NFL season for these Chargers. Also, of course, the Week 1 matchup. For everyone out there who is joining us live, thank you and welcome. You can always find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Hit that like and subscribe button. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to send those our way in all of the social media outlets that you are on somehow finding us. We'll go ahead and, like always, bring those in as we continue through the show. But, Jake, so what we're going to talk about today, we're going to go into kind of just the overall Chargers season begins. We'll talk about some season predictions real quick, and then we'll get into all things Week 1, Washington football, Chase Young, Fitzmagic, and this new era of Chargers football. But Chargers fans got a little bit of a scare today. We don't really know how much of a scare it actually is, but one Austin Eckler showed up on the injury report, as did Brian Bulaga. I believe Gabe Neighbors was on there. And there was one other person that I can't remember off the top of my head. How nervous are you about Austin Eckler not playing on Sunday?
I mean, it's going to have a drastic impact to my fantasy team. That's first and foremost, if that is indeed the case, especially after I was an advocate. I bought into my own advice. I was an advocate for Austin Eckler to be drafted specifically for this reason, under this coaching staff, under a revamped offense. But enough about my fantasy team. No, it's yeah, it's mildly concerning at this point. At this point in the week, and this kind of came out of nowhere. We have no idea what this is, and with the way that we know that we've kind of seen during the preseason, with Brandon Staley being more erring on the side of caution with his players when any injuries do come up, there is a realistic chance that unfortunately we may not see Austin Eckler for this game. We're talking about a hand injury, or excuse me, a hamstring injury. It's nothing to be taken lightly when you're talking about the running back position. So, I wouldn't be surprised if Brandon Staley, does not throw caution to the wind and wants to just be safe on this one and keep Austin Eckler out of this game. So it could be Justin Jackson's game come Sunday morning.
I know I'm normally the optimist of the two of us, but
normally,
I don't know. I know.
Always.
I would be shocked if Austin Eckler does not suit up on Sunday. I don't see a world in which Austin Eckler does not play. He just tweeted out like 3 hours ago how excited he was to play week 1, year 5, ready to go now more than ever. I think this is Coach Staley and team being cautious and taking precautions and not risking it. And I don't blame them. And that's what they've done all offseason. So until proven otherwise, I'm going to put trust in this coaching staff to do what they have done. And we saw it earlier, the number 1 team in terms of health going into the season, which have we ever gotten to say that?
No, but it's very true. But I will say this, no fan base in the NFL reacts to an injury report like the Los Angeles Chargers fan base do. But it's for good reason. Don't tell me to overreact or that I'm overreacting, whatever you want to call it. Anybody who has watched this team's history with injuries, you have to take that with a grain of salt. I remember when it was one practice day that Rashawn Slater wasn't playing, and that's literally just the context that was put out there. Rashawn Slater's out, standing on the side of his helmet. No,
Rashawn Slater back,
and everybody lost it. But historically with this team, given what has taken place during training camp periods, you can't knock anybody for being worrisome about this. So, Dan, I'm with you. I would be legitimately surprised if we did not see Austin Eckler suit up on Sunday. I would be. Yep. But given the situation and where this injury did pop up, at the same time, I would understand the opposite reaction is if he wanted to be overly cautious with it and, not have him possibly make it be any worse. But this is the reputation that Brandon Staley has built up for himself throughout training camp with a lot of these, especially veteran guys, to where he pulls back on the reins a little bit, errs on the side of caution, keeps everything very close to the chest. And most of the time that we have seen, it has been precautionary. So fingers crossed, knock on wood, do the Hail Marys, whatever you have to do, that this is just following that same suit.
Jake, I didn't get a chance to virtually cheers you. I've got coffee. I don't know what the listeners and viewers have in their cups or in their mugs, but cheers to week 1. For Absolutely. Folks out there, we've had a ton of people already commenting. I can't even keep up right now. I'm just going to go real quick. Ross Ackerman, shout out. Yo, let's go. I love that dog on the image, by the way. Jeremy. Jeremy? I'm terrible with names. I apologize. He thinks we've got it in the bag for week 1, minus with the lightning bolts. TSK is not worried, and he is happy to see Bradwell as one of the 4 protected practice squad players. Was actually nervous that Baltimore would pick him up before they picked up Le'Veon Bell. Yes, Eckler was on the injury report, TSK. No, I don't think it's actually that big of an issue. I agree with you, Blue Deftone. Yes, I think he's going to play, but if not, like Jake said, we've got Roundtree, we've got Jackson, we've got Kelly, and we've got Herbert. I mean, let's not kid ourselves on what we've got right now. So, where do we even start? So, we're going to get into the whole week one. We're getting into kind of predictions. Joe Singh, I see you. We will get into those predictions later, I promise. But going into this, we saw some press conferences today. We saw how excited Derwin James was about the progression in Nasir Adderley, about him being healthy and being able to play. We heard from Justin Herbert. We heard from Brandon Staley on how much progression we've seen in Nasir Adderley. Like, we've seen a bunch of people, and it just seems like this team is ready to play someone else. And so, like, the mindset, I believe it was earlier in the week, Brandon Staley said he's grateful that at this point, his team feels like, and I'm going to paraphrase, but basically like, we're done with this, enough. We've seen this before. Let's play somebody else. Let's go. And like, what have you felt that after a Chargers preseason? Like,
I mean, I think it's like that moment, especially over the last 2 years, that you kind of take those little things for granted, considering last year we didn't have a preseason. This year was a truncated preseason, but really we didn't get a chance to see all the big names because Brandon Staley, for obvious reasons, was keeping them out, not even risking any type of injury to be happening in the preseason. But hey, it's like Kyler Fackrell said last week when we had him on the show. His sentiment echoes that of Brandon Staley's. He's just ready to hit someone with an opposite colored jersey. You know, send me somebody else. I'm sick and tired of going against the same guys daily in practice. I know what they're going to do. I know what their tendencies are. Give me somebody different.
So, calm before the storm. We have not gotten a chance to get into predictions of any type. And we can go about this however which way you want. This could be kind of a Q&A, and folks can just ask us questions and we can predict them on the fly. But in the meantime, if you guys want to do that, go ahead. Listeners, viewers, shout them out. We'll see what we can do to answer your questions in terms of what we see as predictions for the season. But Jake, let's go with the first one. We're not going to get into week one yet. End of week 18? Week 17. What will be the Chargers' record? We're just coming out guns blazing.
Like that? We're going to go like that?
Yep.
Wow. I thought we were at least going to have this through the end of the show, but all right. Yeah,
no, we're coming out guns blazing. Let's go.
Look, I've said repeatedly that the first 6 weeks of this Chargers schedule is brutal. You open up against Washington, and you go up against Dallas, you have Kansas City, you have the Raiders on there. You sprinkle in the Browns and the Ravens, I believe, in that 6-game span, Dan. This is no joke. We're talking about a lot of good defenses, interdivision games, good running games as well. I'm still not 100% sold on the interior defensive line of this team. I hope to God we can say that as far as a run defense that we can be improved from what we were last year. Time will obviously tell on that. If the Chargers could get out of that 6-game skid with a 4-2 record, to me, that would be a huge win. You can't afford to lose too much ground to the Chiefs in the division. You just can't. And now, luckily, obviously, the schedule's a little bit more in your favor. You get an extra game, more of a possibility to end up as a wild card for the playoffs. 10-7, given the rest of the outlook with the AFC, should be enough. Should be enough to get you in the playoffs. Why are you covering your mouth?
Wait, so are you saying the Chargers are going 10-7? Is that your prediction?
Yeah. You're looking at me as if like I just said something horrible.
No. I am so proud of you.
Oh my God.
Like, the amount of pessimism that I have heard from you since we have begun this journey together. The fact that I'm hearing Jake Hefner 4 days before the regular season starts saying the Chargers are going to end 10-7, 10 wins. Like, I love you.
Look.
All right,
We finished 7-9 last year, given all the special teams woes, given all the bad situational play calling from the coaching staff last year's goes. Does that mean that all of that is immediately going to go away when we literally just changed our kicker yet again and our special teams during the preseason looks like nothing has changed thus far? No, I'm not going to say that all those things are going to go away, but I will believe and show a little bit of faith in this new coaching staff that, yes, it's completely unpredictable right now. Offensively and defensively, you could say whatever you want about the players that are on this team. They can't get much worse from an offensive line standpoint or from a secondary standpoint or from a 2nd and 15, let's run the ball standpoint, whatever you want to call it. It can't get any worse than that. It can't. But these are the things that us as Chargers fans have come to live with, unfortunately had to understand the hard way for the better part of a decade. So is the pessimism gone, Dan, because I say that they're going to finish 10-7? 100% absolutely not. All right. I know we'll be having more of our pessimism moments on here, but I will show a little bit of faith to say that 10-7 is doable, and with that extra game schedule, that gives you another leg up to make it as a wild card team in the AFC.
So 7-9 a year ago, we have folks already saying 18-0, 12-5, 11-6. This is wow. Okay, so a year ago,
your crowd, Dan.
Yeah, I like this. Before I give my number, let's get some perspective. A year ago, 7-9, rookie quarterback, blowing all kinds of records, going crazy, coaching in shambles, kicking in shambles, offensive line in shambles, injuries, like about as bad as it could be. The one shining light of Justin Herbert shining through. Fast forward, before I fast forward, to put this in context with how much, like you said, we have been jaded with this Chargers team. Chargers were dead last in special teams last year. Chargers have given up 3 block punts last year. Chargers were, I believe, 4th worst in the impact due to injuries in terms of losses because of them. The coaching carousel, it was not good. But, the new day is upon us, and we've got our guys healthy. Derwin James is back. Drew Tranquill's back. We've got a new coach who seemingly will never be outsmarted like other coaches in the past have. Fan base is as excited as I have ever seen it in the history of being a Chargers fan, and that's including the times we were going to the playoffs. I think this fan base is more excited now than then. I'm going record-wise. We don't need to go into all the specifics, but I'm going to go 11 wins. I think Chargers are getting 11 wins this year, and I think that is being conservative.
By your standards, yeah, it sure is.
Think about it, Jake. Okay, Jake, we always talk about when healthy. And I forget who it was, one of the players we had on our show who says, I hate having that terminology.
That was Chris Harry that said that.
And it's true. But the reason I'm saying this is, let's say this team is healthy all season. What would you say the record would be?
If they're healthy all year?
All year.
I'd put it anywhere between the 12 and 11 mark, 100%. Don't even start with me with that. Don't even start with me. Why, Dan? Because you mean to tell me that there's not going to be 5 losses in there realistically? Come on. Let's get out of Rainbow Land for a second. All right?
Okay, fine.
We are not the 2008 New England Patriots that went on a 16-0 run. We don't have the advantage of playing one of the weakest divisions in the NFL for the better part of 20 years. We don't have that luxury. Come on now.
Fine. Okay, another prediction. Someone set the line at 0.5.
I like this.
Over or under block punts allowed week 1 for your Chargers at 0.5. Over under. This is big.
God, such a good line, too. Vegas needs to jump on this. This is a great line.
Nice job, Jed.
You know what, Dan? I'll stay with you and I'll stay optimistic. I will say that there will not be a blocked punt in week 1.
Let's go. I'm pounding the under on this one. Pounding the under. TSK says it's hard to predict, but he's going 11-6-ish. What other do we have here? Kevin comes out and says pessimism is our blood type as Chargers fans. Nothing more true than that. Thunderbolts agrees.
Pessimistic positive. Yes, that's what it is. IB positive, pessimistic positive.
Ross Ackerman shows 11-6 and sweeping the Chiefs. Bold. Don't know. But Efren is bringing us back to what really matters. 1-0. And that's, Derwin James even said today, that's all the team is focusing on, is getting to 1-0. Another one by Jed. Will the team blow less than 5 fourth quarter leads this year? So over or under, let's put it at 4.5.
4.5, under 4. I'll go under 4.5. I will go under 4.5. If the Chargers are losing 6 or 7 games this year, it's going to be more than from a standpoint of what we saw in New England. Maybe not that type of a deficit, 45-0, but it will be much more from a blowout standpoint than it will be blowing the game in 2-minute situations or ridiculous situational football calls. It'll be more from that standpoint if they're going to lose games. I'd rather have that someone come in and play us and say we're better than you and we're going to show it, rather than saying we gave the game away again. Come on, we're sick and tired of seeing that.
Joe DeGroot has that 13-4. Loving the positivity here. 13-4, and another Joe comes in and is loving, by the way, his name. So Joe to Joe, DeGroot is the most badass last name I've ever seen. And to full circle this, Jake, I saw Guardians of the Galaxy last week. Great. Love that show.
You finished it.
I finished it. I did. I felt very proud of myself. At the very end, I'm probably not going to...
You should try finishing the rest of the MCU.
Okay, yeah. I'm trying. I'm really trying. Okay, we got number 10, Herbert for MVP. Absolutely. Rainbow Land is what Jake said to me, and Midas loved it. All right, Jake. Ooh, Jed, I agree. I also love optimistic Jake. Jake, I mean, I hope
he comes around very rarely so far since Dan and I have started this show. He comes around once every blue moon, but you know, he rears his head every now and again.
All right, let's go over under last one for predictions before we get into the week 1 preview. Austin Eckler, Blake Mullinger. Let's say 1.5 for Eckler touchdowns this week.
Rushing touchdowns or passing touchdowns?
Total. 1.5.
I'll say 1, and I'll say that just because of the standpoint of I think the run game for the Chargers, whether Austin Eckler is starting or not, I think the Chargers are going to have a hard time running the ball this week. So I think if there's going to be any progress being done by the running backs in this game, I'll give it more of a chance of Austin Eckler catching a swing pass from Herbert, taking it 20 yards, end zone touchdown.
Ooh, I like it. Spicy. I'm going to go under, but that does not mean Eckler's having a bad game. I think Eckler will play, and I think he will get 1 touchdown through the air. So I'm going to go under 1.5, but that's just fine. All right, Jake, enough of all of the pregame hype, all of the stuff that doesn't matter, because right now, Jake, we have week 1 versus the Washington football game on the Washington football team on the docket. I believe the Chargers have won 4 of the last 5 matchups between these two teams. And I think the last time they played was 2017. in December, and they won something like 30-13. Granted, both teams are entirely different now, but still. I think Washington football owns the total record. I think it's like 7-5 or something like that. But Chargers are on a good little streak here, 4 of the last 5. What is your, we always do this before every week, what is your kind of 5,000-foot view of this game? Like, what are you looking forward to, and what's most important as like the big factors that we should talk about?
I think these teams match up a lot better than most people would realize, especially when we're talking about defensively. Something's going to have to give here throughout the progression of the game, because initially what your thought, I mean, we've been talking about it since Rashawn Slater was drafted on this team. We've been talking about it since the schedule was released. What's going to happen when Rashawn Slater and Chase Young, two guys who played each other, and Rashawn Slater got the better of the matchups in college football, but what's going to happen when these two collide with each other one more time now in the pros? How is this offensive line going to gel together now to the fact that you have 4 out of the 5 guys on your offensive line that are brand new to this team, that a majority of whom have not gotten a chance to play much preseason ball together? How is that going to work against a stout front 4 that Washington has on this defense? On the flip side of the ball, can the Chargers generate a consistent pass rush? Hey, with guys that, like we've seen the preseason of Kyler Fackrell have, you're going to bring Joey Bosa back into this equation, and Chenna Nwosu. Let's see if Chris Rump can get some mixture in there from a pass rush standpoint. The interior defensive line, again, still worries me a little bit. With a weapon like Antonio Gibson, how is Washington going to implement him? I think Ron Rivera has a plan for getting that run game and starting it early, and then letting Ryan Fitzpatrick pick and choose his moments to come over the top, whether we're talking about passes to Logan Thomas. Maybe you get a free break on Terry McLaurin downfield. Who knows? But I think that that's the scheme that he's going to employ. But having Joey Bosa and Derwin James on the field, just take those two names by themselves.
Say it again. Say it again, Jake. Say it again.
Joey Bosa and Derwin James on the field at the same time. In the since Derwin James has been drafted, Dan, keep me honest, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's only 5 games that these two have actually played together. It may even be less. It could be less, but regardless, it's been a very limited amount of time that Joey Bosa and Derwin James have shared the field during regular season play. So getting back both of them healthy to this team and mixing in the names of Kenneth Murray, Drew Tranquill, Asante Samuel Jr.,
starter
Nasir Adderley, who we have been waiting for Nasir Adderley and Derwin James to play together. We really don't have any idea of what this defense is going to look like, but I think there's one thing that we can guarantee. When Derwin James sets foot on this field and is a part of this defense, it changes everything. Everything.
It's hard to not be bullish about this team, which everyone is bullish about their team right now. Every team is 0-0 and gets to go to the Super Bowl this year because we're all going to be great. But looking at this matchup, and looking at the guys that we get to see play for the first time together in 2021, Justin Herbert, Offensive Rookie of the Year, former Offensive Rookie of the Year. Keenan Allen, who I believe he and DeAndre Hopkins are the only 2 players to have caught more than 95 passes in 4 straight seasons. Joey Bosa, who is the only player in the NFL with 15 or more tackles for loss in each of the past few seasons. I go down the list. Jared Cook, by the way, underrated signing. Only tight end with 6 or more receiving touchdowns in the last 3 seasons. I can go on and on and on. But we've got some dudes that makes it very hard to think that this team is not going to win a ton of games this year. Just point blank. So looking at the matchup, right? We got like Scary Terry McLaurin, bona fide superstar. Love him. Antonio Gibson, JD McKissick. We got Ryan Fitzpatrick. We got Logan Reed. I mean, they got some guys. Obviously, we've got, Logan Thomas, excuse me. Chase Young, Jamin Davis, Kendall Fuller, Montez Sweat. I mean, like, the team is deep. And their defense is arguably the scariest one we're going to play, other than maybe the Broncos all season. But one of the things that sticks out to me about this game is the perspective that Palmer, I was looking at the comments, that Brandon Staley talks about. And then you heard, I think Derwin James also reiterated this today at the press conference. It's not about them. Like, it's about us. If we can get this team to play the way this team expects, we'll be just fine. And that's an interesting concept. And if you think about this, Jake, like, how many times last year did we talk about all of the things we were worried about other teams and how they were going to take advantage of us and all of these things? And like, I think a lot of that comes from a place of like not being confident in what you have and sticking to what you know and making them adapt to you. Like, it felt like we were always trying to adapt, never made any adjustments, and it was done. So overall, like, matchup wise, if we could just see this team play the way this team expects to play, we're going to win. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that.
So in terms of key matchups, I think some of the main matchups, and you kind of fill me in as we go because I want to make sure I get all of them here. We've got the running game of the Chargers versus the front four of Washington, which is going to be tough. We've got kind of the Terry McLaurin, Derwin James, Asante Samuel, like that matchup. In the trenches is a big one. Special teams always up for grabs. Who knows? Of all of the matchups, what is the one that you feel not necessarily is the most fun to watch, but the one that you think is the most important in determining the outcome of this game?
Oh, without a doubt, it's Rashawn Slater and Chase Young going up against one another. The other aspect of that is I'd be interested to see how Ron Rivera is going to rotate him, especially if Brian Bulaga should not end up playing this game on Sunday. Storm Norton, we already heard Brandon Staley said if that is the case, that Storm Norton will be the immediate replacement at right tackle. I guess my silence should say everything that you needed to know about that type of a situation. But yes, it's definitely the pass rush. Dan, you've said it a million times. Actually, we both said it. What Justin Herbert did behind this offensive line in 2020 to do what he did to go on to become the offensive rookie of the year was nothing short of amazing. And yes, on paper, based on the talent that the Chargers put into draft capital and free agent priority and protecting their young investment, you would think it can't get any worse than it was last year. And I don't believe it will. But again, we are talking about now a period of time where it's 4 of the 5 guys that have had limited amount of time in real game reps. We're not talking about training camp or going up against guys you know. In-game reps to gel. And you're putting these guys up against arguably the best front 4 in the entire league. Yeah, to me, this game is going to be won and decided by in the trenches. And honestly, that could be, you could flip that argument on both sides, because whether it's our 100%. Defensive line, how they're going to be implying the running game, I definitely think from the pass rushers that we have that we could exploit some of their offensive linemen on the edge. But whatever way you want to slice it, this game is going to be won in the trenches, no doubt.
100%. TSK says this Washington football team is a very tough team defensively. Fitzpatrick is mistake prone under pressure offensively. Totally agree. And honestly, if there's one thing that I can bank on is we are going to see pressure from this Chargers defense. And so if that bodes true, then this bodes well for this team. Joe DeGroot, Jake, looks like we have a coach who is going to know what's going on in the fourth quarter. Looking forward to better clock management. Do you remember the shit that we had to deal with last year? Like,
You loved it, didn't you?
it's so funny to listen to now, but like we were all ripping our hair out, and like every TV show that covers the NFL was laughing or crying or both.
I could still hear Rich Gannon in my head right now when he was doing commentary for one of the Chargers games. I can't remember which one or what week it was.
I think it was the Bills one.
I can remember even him just sitting back in the booth and essentially saying, "What is going on right now?"
So hopefully that doesn't happen again. Blue Deftone. I think we can beat Washington. Hopefully it's Fitzpatrick doesn't turn into Fitzmagic. And hopefully he's Fitz-tragic instead. I like that. Fitz-tragic. I've heard that one before.
Yeah, make sure to put up Joe Singh and Ross Eckerman just to confirm their stats,
yes.
Because the number 5 was in reference to the last 2 years. As it is, they are correct. 12 games between Joey Bosa and Derwin James, as Joey only played 7 games in 2018 during Derwin's rookie year. And of course, Derwin, with his limited action over the last 2 years, them only spending 5 games on the field together. So yes, the magic number is 12. Good job, gentlemen, and thank you for keeping me honest.
One of the things that came out recently is cornerback Asante Samuel Jr. from Florida State DBU, your Seminole, alongside Derwin James, is now been elevated to the starting cornerback 2. Now, you and I both, I believe, had said multiple times that we would be shocked if he was not CB2 by, week 3 at the latest? So, I would have been surprised at all.
I would have been shocked. I would have been shocked if he was not the starter come week 1.
Yeah, and I probably would have put my money on that too. I agree. So, now that he is, we know we're not surprised. How do you feel he will do as a starting corner in the NFL, given he's a second-round pick? Not that he's second-round talent, but how often do you see second-round picks start at corner? Like, how do you think he'll be?
I think Asante Samuel Jr., again, at the cornerback position, you have to carry that level of swag with you. Dan, do you happen to remember our first player guest during the draft build-up? Do you happen to remember who that young gentleman was?
Was it Mukwamu?
It was Mukwamu. And now, remember, he came on the show believing in himself. Obviously, it's almost a rhetorical question. Any player that you'd ask, how do you feel that you match up with the rest of the talent in this league? Of course, they're going to say, I believe that I am the best player at my position. But it all comes out when they actually go out on the field and prove it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, Asante Samuel Jr., yes, I know no regular season games have been played, but he carries himself with a confidence level and with a level of swag to him that you have to have at that cornerback position to go out there and truly perform. And to me, I think we could have said that he proved it when he's tagging in his teammates to say, I want Keenan Allen, or I want Mike Williams. Get me in there. I don't want to cover Josh Palmer on this. And he did it. He tagged himself in, and he'd go out and he'd either get an INT or he'd get a pass defended, whatever it was. That, to me, for a rookie to do that in such an early part of training camp was something to take note of. So I'm extremely excited for this. To pair him up with Derwin James and Nasir Adderley in the secondary, opposite of veteran guys like Michael Davis and Chris Harris, this is going to be something to watch. I'm going to be surprised not surprised. I'm be interested to see how Staley's going to, if so, choose to rotate his corners. Let's see if that happens. Are we going to keep the same corner for that? How are you going to utilize Asante Samuel Jr.? Are you just going to keep him on the outside? Are you going to work him sometimes in the slot, which he's more than capable of playing both positions? So, and what's the term that Staley likes to use as a multi-positional or positionless player?
Positionless players.
Likes to use. I feel that he's definitely going to employ that in a defensive scheme with Asante Samuel Jr. in there.
And I'm so glad you freaking mentioned that because I'm so damn happy to watch a defense that is actually unpredictable and applies pressure. Thank the Lord.
Pressure? What's that?
I don't know. It's what happens with the Chargers every year, and they crumble on it.
Crumble
under it.
That's a new term in 2021 for me. I never heard the word pressure in 2020.
I saw more pressures and blitzes in a preseason game with third string guys than I had in like 4 regular season games last year. And it blew my mind, and I loved every minute of it. So, positionless, multiple, unable to be recognized, keeping offenses on their heels, being able to be in attack, being aggressive. Like, we have not seen that. And we are finally getting to see that with this Chargers defense, with these starters. We might see Nick Neiman, but we're probably going to see Drew Tranquil and Kenneth Murray blow up an offensive line. Like, we're not going to see Alohi Gilman. We're going to see Nazir Adderley and Derwin James. Like, we're seeing the dudes that we are all most excited for doing what they do best in a coaching scheme that makes them more talented than either of us have seen them look before. I have to tell you, I'm pretty darn excited to see what this defense looks like when we are all able to collectively pin our ears back and see what an offense can do to react to what we are doing. Like, guys, gals listening, when have we been able to be in attack mode on defense and be able to take what the offense is giving to us and shove it right back into their throat? Like, it just hasn't happened. And so being able to kind of have that refreshing outlook on this and seeing kind of the team gel and kind of come together is something that I am more excited. You can probably hear me getting a little fired up about this. This defense is what is going to be the biggest change. So there's a bunch of comments. We got a bunch of stuff going on here. Let's just go real quick through some of the position battles that folks are talking about. First, Rashawn Slater versus Chase Young. Who wins?
Spring it on with 40 to 70% off almost everything at Gap Factory and GapFactory.com. Matching styles for the family are on sale too. Shop it all through April 12th.
I think, I'll give the early dibs to Rashawn Slater. I will. I will show enough confidence in our rookie first-round pick to say that he's going to go out there and get the job done. This will no longer be a turnstile at the left tackle position. But again, you're going up against one of the best young pass rushers in the league. It's definitely going to be a challenge. Do I think it's going to be a win-some, lose-some situations? Both guys are going to get their wins, absolutely. But if you were to tell me who's going to win more, I'll still give Rashawn Slater the nod.
All right. Now, on the flip side, you got Joey Bosa, who's an absolute freak, going up against a rookie offensive tackle. Who do you got winning that matchup?
Sam Cosmi was a guy that we talked about on this show, Dan.
Yeah.
He was. But
he's not Rashawn Slater.
That's a great point because everybody's mind immediately goes to Rashawn Slater versus Chase Young just because we saw that matchup in their time in college. And given what Chase Young has done in his short stint in the NFL thus far, it's going to be a great matchup to see these guys go up against one another. But this is a great point. I think everybody forgets the fact that Washington has their rookie, and it's going to be a right tackle. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to rotate in Chenner Nwosu and Joey Bosa. But yeah, if I were Staley or Ronaldo Hill, I'd be saying, hey, Joey, plant your feet on the ground, my friend, but you're going to be spending a lot of time on the right side of this line today. Absolutely.
100%. Friend of the show, Craig Smith. Shout out to Craig Smith. I love the Captain Morgan picture, by the way. Captain Morgan pose, it seems as though he's doing. New position, KJ Hill, punt catcher. We are no longer even needing a punt returner or kick returner. Just catch it, please. Agreed.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Nope, he is not. He is not. Ross Ackerman, I am so excited for the secondary. Derwin and Harris moving everywhere. Asante and Vato. And now Nas is getting huge praise. Jake, did you hear about that today? Derwin, Chris Harris, and Coach Staley all talked about how different Nazir Adderley looks this year versus last year.
We've heard praise on Nas from a number of different people, not just what we heard today, but I mean, we were hearing it throughout player interviews throughout these last several weeks of training camp, Dan. People have been talking up Nasir Adderley a lot. And yeah, we haven't seen it in games yet. I just want to see the pairing that we've heard about and been wanting to have for the last 2 years that we still have just been salivating to see. Nasir Adderley next to Derwin James, because if there is one thing that we could probably guarantee is that if Nasir Adderley is across from Derwin James, it's going to make his play out there on the field a hell of a lot better.
100%. 100%. And there's been a lot of questions in these comments, so I'll just kind of put this here for the topic. As the cornerback room, and you heard Jake talk about it a bit as kind of like the positionless players, Chris Harris and Derwin James, both of those guys are positionless. And I honestly think to an extent, so is Asante Samuel Jr. So we hear a lot about like CB1, CB2, CB3, CB4. You have to remember, like, I don't see it as who's first string, second string, third string, fourth string. Like, they're going to be deployed based on matchups. And so I see it in terms of number of snaps being played. I would say Davis and Asante are two. I think Chris Harris, Asante Samuel Jr., and Mike Davis are probably all going to be playing roughly the same amount of snaps. I'd be shocked if one of them was way lower. I don't see it. Tavon Campbell probably is going to be that rotational piece, like something in the dime, money, like in that area. But like we hope to not have to see him as much because of all the other folks we have on this team. James Wagner, by the way, Jake, says Asante reminds him of Verrett first year, which, man, I'm sidebar, super happy for Verrett. He is looking very good now. All of us knew how good he was, but the dude just could not be healthy. But James, I totally agree with you. He reminds me of Verrett. Like Verrett had those cat-like instincts. I'll never forget the interception he had against the Raiders on the sideline. So, yeah, I'm really bullish on Asante. We've all been bullish on Asante. He was probably like the most wanted Chargers player other than Rashawn Slater. We saw in a bunch of mock drafts. Ross thinks Chris Harris is a chess piece. I believe Coach Staley, Ronaldo Hill believe that is correct. Interesting. No, man, Asante Samuel is going to way outperform. Oh, I see what you're saying. To way outperform Jason Verrett his rookie year. I think you're right. Jake, folks are asking what happened to you earlier. They were worried. They saw my ugly mug. They're like, wait a minute. This can't be just him for the next 20 minutes. This is going to be terrible.
I had to think on the fly because all of a sudden I realized that I didn't have the charger to my laptop plugged in, and I get that little notification that says how much battery life I have left. So I had to think on my feet. So I told Dan, I said, do a solo spot. And
it's show business.
Not necessarily ramble, but he talked about what he needed to talk about. It's airtime. It's live. Sometimes this shit happens. So did what I had to do. We're good.
Live TV. Hey, look, you made it through. The fact that it was seamless, no one knew except Blue Deftone. So thanks for spoiling our fun, Blue Deftone.
And Dan, make sure you understand that Craig, first off, I want to understand that you understand what the Captain Morgan symbol is, because Craig Smith was sitting on a swing in that picture, not putting his foot up on a barrel.
That is swing? That is a swing. Okay, from this angle, it looks like his leg is standing straight and the other leg is crooked like a Captain Morgan logo. I apologize, Craig Smith. Anyways, back to Craig. Joey's going to eat on Sunday. They're going to have to chip and help him out a ton. Fackrell and Uchenna are going to prove very effective in the second half, especially with the lead. Don't forget about Kaiser White. Don't sleep on Kaiser White. Fackrell, Uchenna, and Kaiser White is like the three-headed monster. I don't see either one of them having far less reps than the other. So, well, Jake, what scares you more about this Washington team? The running game? Let's go offense for a sec. Their running attack or their receiving core?
I would probably say their running attack, and I say that based off of I'm still a little bit sketchy about our interior defensive line. And Antonio Gibson, as dynamic as a running back as he is, he's not just a one-trick pony. He doesn't just run the ball. Ron Rivera will want to get him out in space early and often if it means taking pressure off of Ryan Fitzpatrick. So without a doubt, to me, Antonio Gibson is, in the run game, a bigger threat, especially with Curtis Samuel being out. I think they're going to look to go heavy on him in this game. Terry McLaurin's nothing to blow your nose about. He can be a dynamic playmaker, has proven it. He can definitely be a threat. And then you add in rookie guys like Dami Brown. Look,
folks in Washington love what he's doing.
Is it the best wide receiving core? Absolutely not. But it's weapons that Ryan Fitzpatrick can work with, especially if it's a situation where their running game is working to where Ryan Fitzpatrick can just pick and choose his shots. If for whatever reason the pressure's not getting there and the offensive line is going to give him adequate time to do what he needs to do, then this could be a long afternoon for the Chargers. I don't particularly see it going that way, but I think everything, again, is going to be dictated by the trenches. So that running game is the first thing that I look at when it comes to the biggest matchups. I think that Asante Samuel Jr., Mike Davis, Chris Harris, and again, especially even having Derwin James back in this secondary, they'll do enough to lock down the likes of Dami Brown, Terry McLaurin, and Logan Thomas. They'll do enough to, keep them at bay. But I think Antonio Gibson will be the focal point of this Washington football attack.
Yep. And I go back to looking at the two, who am I more worried about, the running game versus receivers. And I just go to what part of our defense am I most confident in? A defense with a secondary of Chris Harris, Asante Samuel Jr., Mike Davis, and Derwin James with Nazir Adderley? I feel good about that. You mentioned it before. The jury's still out on the interior defensive line of this team. I'm not necessarily worried about the pass catching ability because I think our linebacking core is heavy fast enough for that. But if we can't stop the running game, I agree with you, it's going to be a long day. Flipping sides then, Jake. We've got Chargers receivers to talk about. Keenan Allen, he's always open. We know that. Mike Williams, please stay healthy. You'll catch everything 50-50, more like 80-20. Josh Palmer, the rookie, impresses everyone. He got a lot of praise today from Derwin James himself. Jalen Guyton. I mean, we got KJ Hill, but KJ Hill's not really the receiver. How do you feel about the receivers going up against the Washington football team?
I think the match that you're drawn to is Keenan Allen versus William Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys. So that'll be a good matchup to watch. The rest of it, you look at this for what they have, and I'm really excited to see what Josh Palmer is going to do. I think the camaraderie that he's built with Justin Herbert thus far in the preseason is not a fluke. It's not a fluke whatsoever, and it's not by default given the way that the depth chart has fallen to him or the way that the receiving talent has changed a bit over the last couple of weeks. I think this is going to be I think this could be potentially a great opening game for Joshua Palmer in this. I think people may be surprised on how much he is utilized. I mean, we all remember what the first preseason game was and how every single ball was going to Joshua Palmer, and that's for a specific reason. I think that Brandon Staley takes note of that, and I think he'll want to employ a lot of that. I think that he'll let Justin Herbert know if he hasn't known already and taken note of it. Obviously, their playing reps have only come in practices. But, man, this is going to be an interesting matchup to watch for this entire receiving group. And, yeah, if you want to lump in the tight ends with this as well, inside the 20s, give me Jared Cook, give me Donald Parham in a 2 tight end set, and just sit back and let the magic happen. Because I think you put 2 tight end sets from the 20 and then on, especially in goal line situations, these guys are going to feast.
Look, it's going to be tough sledding for our offense. Like, as much as we are excited and as talented as of offense we have, like, listen to these names. Like Chase Young, defensive rookie of the year, Montez Sweat, Jamin Davis taken out of the first round by them, who's very good. Kendall Fuller, William Jackson, Landon Collins. Like, there's a lot of talent on defense. And so you need guys who can just be playmakers, who's just like a cheat code. Keenan Allen is that type of player. Like, there are certain things that people can do where there's just no defense to go up against that. Keenan Allen has some of those skill sets in terms of just always being open. Mike Williams has those skill sets in terms of, if all else fails, chuck it. And in more cases than not, he's going to come down with it. Guyton, you're a burner. Josh Palmer, smooth as cooler than the other side of the pillow. R.I.P.
Yes.
Stuart Scott. We've got, and then again, tight ends. Like, I think that's a huge mismatch. And that's also why I have Jared Cook on my fantasy team, because he is going to ball out this year. Can't wait. All right, Jake, we're kind of rounding out the matchups to look for here. Okay, over under. Let's go through some fun ones. Over under on number of yards that Justin Herbert throws this Sunday. I'm going to put the line 297.5.
Oh, man. I'll go the over for this. And I'll say this strictly because of the standpoint that against this front four, I think the Chargers are going to have a hard time running the football, no matter who it is that's going to be back there to start the game at the running back position, whether it's Austin Eckler, Justin Jackson, whoever it is. I think they're going to have a hard time running the football. So it's going to be on Justin Jackson's shoulders to pass to win this game. So, yeah, I'll definitely give an over for that. Couple passing touchdowns to running back situations, absolutely, I could see that. But getting running production on the field against this front four with an offensive line that hasn't had that much time to gel, I would not put my money on that. So I will bet on the franchise quarterback to go over 297.5, as you like to put the number on it. So screw it. Give me 310. Give me 310 with 2 touchdowns.
Let's go. 2 touchdowns. Oh, I'm going over that. All right. So it looks like everyone is taking the over, the half especially. We've got Brian Scott taking the over. IB Hondo taking the over, way over, just to be specific here. Let's see. Okay. Rushing yards collectively by the Chargers. I'm gonna put the line.
Include Justin Herbert in this?
Yes, yes. It includes everybody who can possibly run. I'll put the line at 82.5 total yards.
I'm gonna go under. Sorry.
I think
rushing yards, I will go under.
I think you're right. Now, we've got folks are predicting over. We've got folks saying 99, 97, way over. Real quick, this is actually kind of an interesting topic. And I think you and I had talked about this when we were on a Washington football team podcast earlier. But I'm going to say it's Mel Hymas. I'm going on a limb here. Mel Hymas. Crazy to think we don't know what our first defense looks like. Interior line, opposite edge of Bosa, DJ, and secondary. Like, as much as Chargers fans, and I'm sure the players and coaches and everyone like understands why we didn't play a lot of our starters during preseason, like it does give you a little bit of, I don't want to say angst, but a little bit of like unknown, where like you got all the pieces, but like you've never actually seen. It's like the pieces on the puzzle. Like you got all the pieces of the puzzle, but like you've never actually seen them like put together. You've seen it in practice a little bit. Are you a little, zero worried about like those guys coming together in 4 days?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about, if we just break down this question, saying the interior line and, the edge position and Derwin James in the secondary, technically, in 2018, we saw this. Last year with Linval Joseph, we saw this. Jerry Tillery, we saw this. The unfortunate part about that is that they were under a completely different coaching staff. So it's basically just giving an upgrade, essentially, you could think of it that way, to pieces. Remember that old adage where you say, if it's not broke, don't fix it? Well, this is something that's completely different. It's not broke, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fix it anyways. That's the intrigue here. Yes, it's aspects of the unknown, because that's the truth. We've seen these players on this defense, but we haven't seen them under a Brandon Staley, Ronaldo Hill defense. Give me a defense that can blitz, show pressure. Give me a defense that's going to play in Chenanu more than 15 or 19 snaps respectively on a week in and week out basis. Give me another two dynamic pass rushers in Kyler Fackrell and rookie Chris Rump that sole purpose looks to be like they're just going to go get after the quarterback when they're in this game. Give me a resurgence of a Kaiser White added into a linebacking group of Drew Tranquil and Kenneth Murray. And again, the dream that I've been waiting to see for the past 2 years. Give me the combination of Nasir Adderley and Derwin James at their respectable safety positions. So, yeah, there's unknown, but there's so much intrigue behind this because we know what we heard about from the defense balling out in training camp. Let's do it against someone in a different colored jersey for a change.
Now, the thing is, it cuts both ways. Like, to his point, or to the comments point previously, we haven't gotten to see all of them play together in an NFL football game ever. Like the collective group, we have not seen play one snap that we're going to be seeing the first play of this season. But it cuts both ways. Like, we could also be nervous that we haven't seen them, but Washington hasn't seen a damn thing. Like, how do you think they're feeling? And IB Hondo, I think I should talk about this. Like, what if we might be worried? Like, what do you think they are preparing for? Like, I think I talked about this on Twitter a couple days ago, but everyone who talks about like, oh, the Chargers last year ranked blah, blah, blah in, defensive whatever and sacks and pressures and yards, like, literally none of that matters. Like, none of that should be used in context for comparing to this season. Like, there's nothing further from what was last year's defense than this year's defense. Like, they are complete polar opposites. And so, yes, we haven't seen it. But imagine being like the offensive coordinator or head coach for opposing teams coming in and trying to prep for this team. Let alone week 17 when they've seen it. But week 1 when no one's ever seen it, like, I'll take my chances. I like it. And yes, Victor says, at least we're not the Raiders. Okay, here's a fun question. Brian Scott says, Rump for sleeper of the year. Jake, who is your sleeper of the year?
I just want I want an answer from you on this because this is your pick. This is your boy. So simple yes or no to this answer. I'll let you take that first.
Do I think Rump is a sleeper of the year? For me, no. For others, yes. I've been high on him since before we drafted him. So
interesting.
He's not. I don't see him as a sleeper. But like, comparing the other guys he has to go up against in terms of getting play time, like it's going to be hard for him to kind of climb the ranks without balling out. And I think he's going to ball out. I think he's going to be looked at as a sleeper for sure. If not him, who? Who do you say is a sleeper?
I think there's two players that you could genuinely look at, not to say that they will, but has a good chance of getting that sleeper designation and going out and having a tremendous season. One, Nasir Adderley. No question about it. No question about it. Getting the opportunity to play next to Derwin James is only going to make him better. It's going to free him up for more opportunities. And the other, third year is huge for this individual, that being Jerry Tillery. And him being employed in this Brandon Staley scheme, to me, it's make or break for him. Do I think it's an absolute certainty that he's going to have success? No. But I think there's a great chance that people could still be sleeping on him. And if he comes out and turns into the player that we all expected him to be when we drafted him with a first-round pick, I don't think anybody should be that surprised if it does happen. But the potential and all the ingredients are there in this defense with this talent around him.
We've got folks calling out Justin Jones as a sleeper pick, calling out Jerry Tillery like you. We've got Larry Roundtree. Folks are thinking about Vato, Mike Davis, potentially could be the guy. There's a lot. There's a lot of guys who could be the sleeper pick. I might go with 2 rookies, both on defense. I think you're going to see Mark Webb do way more than folks are thinking and having a much larger impact. I think he will have a larger impact on this team than Tavon Campbell will. I'll tell you that much. And I also think Nick Neiman is going to be one of the better players that we'll look back on and be like, man, we got a steal with him. So, Jake, we talked about kind of the key matchup, players to watch. We talked about our predictions. We talked about season predictions, not necessarily this year or this game. People talked about Kyler Fackrell and his being able to kind of rush the quarterback potentially. We talked about interior defensive line, safeties, corners, Derwin James being back, Drew Tranquill finally being back. And I'm so excited to see him play. Shall we get into our final predictions? Do you think we're ready for that yet?
I don't know if we're ready for that yet. I'm just playing. If it is that time, go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead.
No,
you know how historically I've been whenever it's come to game predictions.
I'm not ready. I'm not ready, Jake. I'm not ready. I can't do it. I'm not ready. So, Jake, I'm going to let you take the reins. What should we talk about next? Go ahead.
No, Dan, go ahead.
I'm not ready.
It's time for the predictions. Well, you are. You are the optimism. You're the optimistic one out of us. So
okay,
you have to go. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it is time. Chargers, Washington football team, week 1, Sunday, 10 o'clock. Who is going to win the week 1 matchup? We all know I am the optimist of the two, but I even think Jake might be optimistic on this. I'm hoping he is, but I will lead the way. Washington's defense scares the shit out of me. I'll just be blunt. But so does the Chargers defense. And so does Justin Herbert to them. I am less worried about Washington football team. I am more worried about us being us. And if there's one coach I would want to instill that perspective and to instill that persona of controlling ourselves, focusing on us being the best versions of ourselves. I know I have been burned by this Chargers team over and over and over and over, and we all have. But this team is different. I've said it for weeks now. This team bleeds through Brandon Staley. Like his energy, his attention to detail, his ability to get guys to be bought in, his humility, and his passion for just getting better, and his smarts, to be honest. That goes through and resonates across the coaching staff, across the team, and across the players. So for that reason, I think this team is going to be ready to play. It's going to be a tough game. I'm going to go 23-16, 23-17. 23-17 Chargers. You're going to see predictions. 2 turnovers, 0 blocked punts, 0 missed field goals, and you will see 1 positive special teams play from the Chargers. Whether that's a blocked field goal, whether that's like a punt / kick return, something like that. Like you'll see something positive from special teams this week. Week 1, Chargers win 23-17.
Man, you're just dripping optimism right now, Dan.
23-17. That's not.
No. I'm not talking final score. I'm just saying. I mean, that was first off. That was a great build up. That was a great couple hype sentences from you to get ready for this week 1 matchup. I mean, you got the optimism running out of your pores, sir. I mean, kudos to you. So you may not like how I start this off.
Here we go.
Just let me finish, okay? Dan, yes. There's no question out of the two of us that you are the more optimistic person, okay? There are several points that you made that I agree with you on as far as this team being different, this new philosophy and perspective of this coaching staff and what they're bringing to this team. 100% agree with you. I do. If this matchup, Dan, was week 4 instead of week 1. Now listen to all the elements here. It's a week 1 matchup. You're going up against arguably one of the best defenses, if not a top 3, at least, arguably the top front 4 of any defense in the league. You're traveling West Coast to East Coast for an early 10 a.m. game with a coach, rookie head coach, if you will, going into his first NFL matchup. Historically, going back to the Norv Turner days, I know none of us like to mention these days, even worse so in the Mike McCoy days, and things unfortunately didn't change in the Anthony Lynn days. This Chargers team is historically has a bad reputation for starting slow in the month of September. They are. Until something changes, Dan, I have a hard time fully getting on board with it. But like I said to you, the first 6-week slate, if this team can come out of that 6-week span with a 4-2 record, I think is an absolute win and would be amazing. Amazing.
Okay.
For this last 2 hours or so that we've been debating what's going to happen, I've honestly been going back and forth. I think it'll be a much closer game than what people think. I think it's definitely going to be a defensive slugfest from both teams going back and forth. Each team's going to get their wins. Initially, I was thinking about an hour and a half ago that it was going to be a 17-13 final score. And now I could make a case that this could be a final score for either Washington to win or for the Chargers to win. I'm even having a hard time doing that. This is why I hate predictions. But you know what, Dan? After listening to you talk, after everything that I just said, I have to try and start off the 2021 season on the right foot. So I'll say it's still going to be a defensive slugfest, close game, 17-14. I can't believe I am actually about. Tristan Vizcaino kicks the game-winning field goal for the Chargers, and they win 17-14.
Holy crap! We got Jake with an optimistic take. Jake, you got me on that. I was not expecting any optimism after that shit show of a June gloom you gave us. Wow, I am shook. I'm like Oh my gosh. I am absolutely speechless. So, look, there's a bunch of folks here right now who I think are all anxious, excited, scared, nervous, enthusiastic. There's a bunch of them. But let's just go through these real quick. Jake, you were frozen for a good 15 seconds. So I think we had a really fun facial expression.
Yeah, see, that's what happens when optimism comes out. Like the computer doesn't know what to do with itself. It's just like, what he said.
Error.
Let's fact check him for a second and put him on blast.
All right, so let's go through some of these other ones. We got comments here all over the place. Brian Scott says 42-7. Hey, you thought I was a homer. 42-7 from Brian Scott. 35-0 from IB Hondo.
I would love it if all these predictions came through right now. I would love it.
27-13 by Efren. Reasonable. 27-10 James Wagner. 23-17 by TSK. Hey! I agree. 23-19 by Gruder McBoltz. I love that name. I might need to name my next pet that. What is higher, Jake? Chargers points on Sunday or runtime of All In? You predicted 17-14. Is that what you said? The last All In episode was 20 minutes roughly. So you say over for All In. Is that what you're predicting?
We're talking the score of the Chargers score or the combined score of both teams having a longer runtime of All In? Because if that's the case,
Chargers points on Sunday.
Score, then obviously I win the under if we're talking about the latest episode of All In. I'll say it runs about the same. I'll say it runs about 20 minutes. So I'll say the under.
Okay. New shoes.
Now, shoes, there's someone that's a little bit more down to earth, a little bit more realistic, still getting a Chargers victory. That's good.
Yep. Efren, Jake, as of today, Turner, McCoy, and Lynn have more wins as an NFL head coach.
There's my fact checker. I mean, it's 100% true. It's 100% true. But in the month of September, none of those three have had good first quarter of the year records as head coaches. I can't remember a September starting off on the right foot for these guys.
Brian Scott, I totally was with you when we were listening to the June gloom, just like the showers that Jake was putting on all of our hopes and dreams for this week one. I'm like, man, you are harsh in my mellow. I was all hyped, and now I'm just going to sit here and cry with a pint of ice cream. But no, Jake came through in the clutch, gave us like a Quentin Tarantino move, and all of a sudden, we're all excited again. So my enthusiasm was curbed for a smidge of time. And then, Jake, you brought it right back. And Jed Jacobson, I agree. Regardless of the score, if the Chargers win this game, Jed Jacobson is doing Jake's tri-tip recipe that he provided. And Jed, if that is the case, we better damn well get a picture of this.
If that's the first time that you're going to be doing it, Jed, I hope it tastes even sweeter on a victory. Technically, it would be a victory Sunday because it's an early game, so you can make it right after.
Yeah, Blue Death Zone.
Blue Death Zone has a reputation, and it's great. Blue Death Zone has a nice reputation of pointing out every time the camera freezes. For some reason, I wish I could see it, just so I can look and see what an idiot I look like when the camera's frozen. But he always loves to point out how ridiculous my face ends up being.
Victor says Chargers are going to go 17-0 and win the Super Bowl. Then I'm going to turn off my PlayStation and go to bed. We've got some predictions here. Larry Roundtree, folks are predicting he's going to get 2 touchdowns and also a total of 5 points from Vizcaíno with a field goal and 2 extra points. We've got question here, Jake. We'll go quickly for questions for, let's do 3 minutes, and then we're out. Guys, I know, thank you so much for joining us, for kind of following along, for comments, for listening and viewing, for taking part in this. We're all excited for week one. Jake, who's going to dominate time of possession this Sunday?
Ooh. I'll still give the edge to the Washington football team because, again, I agree. They're going to have better success running the football against us than we will against them, which, of course, will give them more time on the clock. So even in a Chargers victory, I'll still say that the Washington football team will edge us out in that category.
Okay. M. Lace 27. How many special teams miscues will the Chargers have on Sunday?
Well, we're talking about the
Miscues.
Chargers special. Yeah, we're talking about the Chargers special teams here. So they're not just going to magically all go away from last year. But like we've said many times, it can't get much worse than it was in 2020. So I think what we saw in the preseason, no doubt Darius Swinton is probably in every one of his guys' ears right now, explaining how crucial it is to not make special teams mistakes. Now, does that mean it's going to happen? Hell no. But if you want to put a number on it, if we're going to say miscues from a standpoint of a guy ends up, having a nice return for 30 yards, takes to the 40, bad field position. Yeah, I'll still say you get a couple of those come Sunday. They're not just going to magically go away. I'm sorry to disappoint.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, we're closing things out. The best time of year for the Bolt fam. And then the horror
right
starts.
Before the season starts.
We're all there. We're all going to be along. We are going to be here together with each other throughout the good and the bad and the ugly, which that is preeminent.
Cannot wait to bring that segment back next Monday.
Yep. Thank you to everyone who has taken part. Thank you guys for all of the love that you're giving us on these comments. You guys are the best. James Wagner, you're awesome. And also, by the way, I agree. Staley will prove to have coached the most complete Chargers team in team history. Jake, I just said this about an hour and a half ago. This is the best talent this Chargers team has had in 20 years that I have seen. And I think James Wagner is right, and we're going to prove it. He's been a fan for 37 years.
It's hard to refute that.
Yep. Victor, you're very welcome for the live stream. Thank you so much for the kind words. TSK, you're very welcome. Blue Deftone, I agree with you. Jake is an awesome man. Even frozen, I'll still take Jake every day. James, thank you. Take care. God bless you all. Thank you, Efren. Thank you to Thunderbolts, and thank you to Scott, Brian is his first name. Jake, anything else we want to say to the great peeps of LA Chargers fandom before we log off until Sunday at 10 a.m. for week 1 kickoff?
Man, I said it at the opening part of the show. We've been waiting 7 months. What was it? 31? What's 7 months? Screw it. 7 months, essentially.
Not too long.
218, whatever the hell it was, 218 days, whichever way you want to look at it. Football is back, baby. So get ready for it. Starts tomorrow night with Tampa Bay and Dallas. Make sure your fantasy lineups are, of course, positioned accordingly. I know mine certainly will be. But, God, it's good to have football back. Always brings in the fall in the best possible way. You know what time of the year it is. There's 4 seasons. There's summer, there's spring, there's winter, and there's football season, baby. Let's get back to it. I'm ready to go.
Let's go, guys. Let's have a blast this season. Week 1 is officially upon us. Thank you so much for listening, for watching. If you have not already, please hit the like and subscribe button if you want to do it right now. Awesome. I won't say no. Thank you guys again for watching. We have so much in store for you on behalf of Chargers Unleashed and for LAFB Network. Things are about to get crazy. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will talk to you after the Chargers versus Washington football game on Sunday. Have a great rest of the afternoon. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the game. And bolt up, baby. Let's go. Chargers season starts.